Excited today to be hosting the Future of Prospecting panel. We all know about prospecting today. We don't want to talk about prospecting of yesterday. It's kind of icky, but we're gonna dive right in and understand some of the more forward-thinking ways to prospect to really help you all. Joined with me today, I have Lindsay of Avoma, Daisy of Orem, and Landon of Falcon. You all want to take a couple seconds to talk about your role and what you do in regards to prospecting?
Yeah, I can kick it off. My name is Lindsay. I'm an account executive at Avoma. Avoma is a very organized meeting assistant that makes your meetings more actionable with AI and conversation intelligence. So I've been in B2B SaaS for almost 2 years now. Came from an SDR role prior to this. So yeah, I'll pass it off to Landon or Daisy.
Go for it, Daisy.
Awesome. Thanks, Landon. Hi, everyone. My name is Daisy. I'm the sales director at Orem. Orem is a conversation platform designed to get reps into more live conversations. So here at Orem, we do use Orem for our own prospecting. I manage a team of 9 rockstar AEs, and I've been in SaaS for about 8 years now, from SDR to SDR manager to AE to now sales director. And prospecting never gets old. So excited to dive deeper today with these lovely folks. And I'll pass it back to Landon.
What's going on, everyone? My name's Landon. I lead the SDRs over at Falcon. If you've never heard of Falcon, that's all right. I'll probably cold call you soon. What we do is we grab all the data out of your go-to-market systems that are stuck in your data warehouse. We connect the dots for you so that you can win more faster.
And Amelia, MC of the day of the week, is here.
Right, I was late.
Amelia heard that there was a prospecting panel going on, and she decided to join. What's up?
I prospected, right? I prospected my way into this one because look at these fine folks. Like I was like, hell yeah, we're jumping in on this one.
Amelia prospects via email with Reggie, Orem by phone with parallel dialers, just optimizing all of that. We have Lindsay listening to it all to help to help you make actionable decisions and improve and level up. Is this, and we have Landon who then looks at all the data after and says what's working and what doesn't and optimizes on that. Did I do that decently? Like, this is a pretty relevant as a family for
this
prospecting.
It's a beautiful little family we have, you guys. What a fam. What a fam
Right.
that's been created.
I'm going to jump into it, right? Like, prospecting is about finding the right person at the right time with the right message. So where do we even start, Lindsay?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think starting prospecting is kind of daunting for a lot of SDRs, especially newer in their role. Really finding your ICP and your target persona is where you start. I think it's really important to obviously know who, prior to prospecting, your product is really going to have value for. And so finding those roles that really are, number one, purchasing you, but number two, going to be using your tool is really important. So that's kind of where I start out. And yeah.
What about you, Daisy? Everybody's got a phone.
Exactly. So, piggybacking off what Lindsay is saying, it is important to understand your ICP and target those folks. So what I recommend doing is when you join a company, you're going to have clients already. So dig into what works. Look at all your clients, see who's buying from you already. Look at their competitors. If they're buying, that means their competitors can buy. Reach out to similar persona. And now you're working smarter on what's already been proven at your company and targeting those right folks when you call and email.
Landon, you're notorious for throwing things that work in your process on LinkedIn. Like yesterday, you showed about that awesome response, and it opened up so much. Like, where do you even start?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. I think it, like what everyone said, is awesome. Something to realize is that, like, it really depends on the company you're working at. Like, if I'm at Gong, like prospecting is going to look a lot different, right? There's already systems built, and you're going to sit with the top reps. They have like a crazy enablement team, so you're ready to roll, and you're going to follow this process and allow for your individuality to come out while you were hired. But if you're at like a new stage company and no one knows about you, like put me in there, because that's where the fun happens. Because for me, I think prospecting is having conversations. You have conversations with people that are so-called in your ICP, and then you have conversations with people above them and below them, and figure out what's sticking, what's not, and then you take that messaging and then you go after your must-win accounts, and that's kind of like what I'm big on. And plus, like what Daisy said, is like talk to those people that have already bought from you. Like the gold's there, but it's usually really hard to get to because there's not always resources to build these use cases and customer stories out. So go take it on your own and reach out and use your prospecting skills to go have a conversation with that person. Because if you don't, like you're waiting on someone else to set you up for success.
Wow. I love that. I'd always been a fan of like looking at customers that bought like within the last 30 to 45 days, because let's be real. We have Reggie below, when I say below, with Amelia releasing new products like all the time, and new stuff happening in the market. Are you like, when I say new stuff happening, like emails being harder to be delivered, for instance, right? Like than it was 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's, building off this, and your relevant ICP, do you see that evolving or changing over time?
Well, one thing we know for certain is change is constant, right? Everything is going to be changing. That's just a factual thing. Of everything in life, change is constant. And so technology is advancing and we got to keep up. So in order to be able to prospect well, you need to know how to utilize what you have in front of you to do so. If you don't have the resources or the people beside you who can help guide you and show you the prospecting ways of doing things, because everybody's doing things different ways now. I mean, you see some of these people right out of college and they're like, boom, 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 I'm making all this stuff happen. And you're like, whoa, what did you just do? Because they were born with a phone in their hand, right? That's probably why. But also it's how do I, not shortcuts, but how do I just do this better? Like, how do I do this to where it's going to be not so timely and I can get more done in less time, that's more effective, efficient, and I'm utilizing this list. It might be this long opposed to forever long. My hands go away. So like clearly it's forever long, and working smarter that way, like you were saying, Daisy. But if you test and try, like Landon's saying, you got to keep testing on your own. If you don't have the resources and the people within who can help guide you, say you're at a Gong, right? They've got a crazy enablement team, but there might not be that, and they'll tell you, okay, here's the steps, here's what we do. Whereas the Falcon, Reggie, it's a let's test and try and then shift, pivot where it need be, and allowing you to go and test and try. Say other companies won't let you. I challenge everybody to still try to do something on your own. So hit your numbers, do what you're supposed to be doing, but still try the Slack method, right? Like 90% of what I closed year to date has been through Slack communities, which is not the orthodox way of doing it. But I still hit my numbers the way I needed to through different ways of, like the way that we're trying to build a process, but through also doing it my way. So it's evolving.
Well, I want to bring up a question off of that. Like, when your prospects live everywhere, how do you most actively find them and go after them and sift through all of the noise? Daisy?
Yeah, just to clarify, you're referring like they're fully remote, they're all over the world now, or
so they're living, they're engaged in more places than they were, right? Like Amelia talked about Slack community. So they still have phones, they still have emails, but now there's other ways to get to them as well.
Dark social, if you will.
Got it. Okay, thank you for clarifying. So I'm a big believer of multi channels and multi-threading. It's not one channel that's going to win the business or get them interested. It's how you create the entire campaign. Do you send that email first, or do you call first? And after that, do you send a LinkedIn message? And then maybe a week later, do you Slack someone in their cohort or their community? And then maybe a month from now, you send over a gift and use a gifting platform. As you mentioned, there's so many different channels. As long as you create a sequence or cadence of steps that make sense and speak to your ICP, someone as a sales professional shopping will react a little differently than someone in IT, than someone who's selling to doctors. You have to understand what cadence works best, create that, and that's the goal to getting the meeting, the business, et cetera, et cetera.
What are you seeing, Landon?
Yeah, I mean, that's spot on. I would say like the biggest thing is, I don't know why that's doing that, but consistency on whatever that framework is. Like, you can't just like, if you're going to do it, you got to do it 5 days in a row. You can't be taking days off, because then you don't compound affect it. And also, like, fight the urge to pitch ever. Like, you know, it's really easy when someone connects with you on LinkedIn after you sent them a note and they hadn't responded, but they like accepted the request. Like, it's really easy to jump in there, but just take that as like, hey, that's some more awareness for me. And now I'm going to continue working the sequence, and I'm going to continue calling them. I'm going to find the channel that they want to respond to me on, but just like provide value. And because in my experience, like, whenever you bring the pitch out, you just lost. There's just no way about it, even on the phone or email. Like, it's just like, bring value, have a point of view, give it to them, and let them decide, okay, I'm ready for a conversation. I think, like, for myself in my early days, I was so short-minded. Like, I would base my results on daily meetings, and it's so much more than that, especially now. And I would say,
money,
like,
if you want to make money,
yeah,
can't be just meetings.
I get it. I totally get it too. And just like consolidating your messaging, like really down to like the bare bones of what you could possibly say to someone without the other words in it. I find that does really well with whoever you're selling to. They don't want to read your novel.
Think about like what, and to bounce off that, one, can't help it, use Reggie. Two, also,
Two, there's no selling, and we just spoke about direct.
I didn't sell. I didn't
pitching.
do that. I didn't do that. I just said use Reggie. It's just like hey, y'all should like.
Amelia's one of 1% of 1% that can get away with.
I talked about that earlier. I try to get away with as much as I can. It's fine. But to bounce off what you're saying, Landon, I think it's so important to remember that like selling is helping is selling. If you are showing up solely as somebody who is trying to take, you're not giving, and you're not just genuinely helping people. You don't have to have this CTA at the end, this call to action. You can literally just say, hey, great to connect with you. Like, super excited to follow your success. Find something that's going to ego stroke this person. Then you are congratulating them on something, whatever it may be. Or, hey, saw you guys are doing this. It's amazing. Awesome. Love it. Let me know if I can be a resource in any way. Cheers. Boom. But let them know that. Then go back to where, if you're prospecting well, wherever your buyer lives, go back to that source when you're going to touch base with them again. So go back there. So that's how, like with Slack, I would win deals through huddles, because that's where we originally spoke. We originally connected was through Slack, and it'd be like, all right, let's get all our people together. Let's just all jump in and like chat right here. It'd be
Lindsay.
easy. So I know
what would you add? What would you add to that?
Yeah, I would definitely like to piggyback off of that. Like, meet people where they want to be met. Everyone has their preferred channel, right? I think Landon and I had talked about this before, where some SDRs prefer to cold call or email versus LinkedIn, but it's really, you have to do all of those, because the person on that receiving end is going to have their preferred channel, and that may not be yours, right? But you have to meet them there, because that's where they're going to be most likely to respond to you. And I think consistency in your messaging, whether it's LinkedIn, email, phone, Slack, like Amelia does, is really important too. So that A, you're recognizable, right? B, your brand is consistent. And then C, it's going to be a lot easier for them to come back and say, hey, I really like what you said over LinkedIn. Let's talk next Friday over email, something like that. So I would definitely agree there. Meet people where they're at.
You know, it's super interesting. Like, a lot of you talk about meeting people where they're at. You know, we have all these methods of outreach, all these channels, and we're all using all of them. But people sort of group social selling a little different, right? Like yeah, it's part of it, but like it's also on a separate pedestal. And I don't want to lead here, but what is social selling, and how is it different than traditional prospecting? Let's start with Lindsay.
Yeah. So I think social selling is something that I recently started doing. Definitely am going to continue on because it's not just about selling a product, right? It's your personal brand. And I really think that if you start to incorporate, so I think Landon is obviously incredible at this, but incorporating what you're doing every day and creating content around your ideal persona that you're trying to reach out to, that's going to be more appealing than your cold outreach, right? Because you're adding value to their network over LinkedIn versus asking for their time directly. And so I think I made a post a few weeks ago about Avoma taking notes for you during your meetings, and just simply put out a question like, how are you taking notes during your discovery or demo calls today? And I had someone message me, I think the same day, saying that's exactly something they were looking for, right? It's not someone I had pitched. It's not someone I had cold called even. And they just reach out to me about it. So it's just adding value and creating content that really fits your ideal target personas, but also your own personal brand, right?
Love it. Daisy,
sure.
how would you expound on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it nowadays is creating that brand, becoming, in a sense, a content creator. It's about adding value to the greater public. I think a lot of times in traditional prospecting, you're talking to someone one-on-one. You call them, you email them, you text them. It's a very one-on-one relationship to earn their business. Nowadays, social selling is a broader audience. It's capturing everyone, showing that this is what's important to me. This is my brand. This is the value I want to bring out. And that's how you start building a following of people who are interested in what you have to share. And that type of social selling gets you referrals, gets people talking about you and your company behind the scenes. And so you do cast a wider net, but it's less of that direct one-on-one relationship.
I'm going to point out what Aaron said.
Let's go, Amelia.
Did you see that? What Aaron said? Aaron said, y'all sound like marketers. And I think that's really interesting. And it bounces right off what you said, Daisy. You cast a wider net. So you're getting that inbound and that outbound. So you're getting those leads that are flowing in both directions, right? Because people are coming to you through what you are creating and where you're showing up. And you're being visible, you're being a face of this organization. That's the social aspect, right? Then there's the prospecting is actually the outbound motion that you'd be doing. Social selling, I think I don't know if social marketing maybe is a better term. Basically, because you are kind of marketing what you do in a way that's not just selling, it's helping, and you're showing up. And I think if more people, actually, it's a good point, Aaron. If more people that are salespeople are showing up, acting more this marketing kind of way of, I'm not pushing this product on you, I'm just trying to help you. Here, this might make your life easier. Yeah, it might make your life easier.
Demand gen.
The social demand gen evangel, yeah, put those words together, whatever that makes. Yeah.
Supercalifragilistic.
Yeah, that. Be one of those, It's interesting. I like that point.
Landon has something on the tip of his tongue on this point.
Look at him. I see it. I know. He's thinking.
I think, thanks. Yes, it's a little tricky, right? Like, I think it really depends on what your goal is, but I think it's like a good blend of inspiring people, being vulnerable, teaching people stuff, basically getting, folks talking about you without you actually in the room, kind of thing, like this awareness about your product and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of gone through stages of social selling. Like I pulled back a lot from it because it kind of, I think I went down a path of like I was starting to offer my own things and try to get monetary gain from it. And It really made my content like have like this secret, like there was like, like I was trying to get something out of it, but I was trying to like put it up that it wasn't, and it just didn't feel right. So I kind of stopped all of that. And I know the best time that I have on LinkedIn is when I'm either inspiring, teaching, or being vulnerable about something, and doing it in an altruistic way where I'm not expecting anything back.
That's
Then you get it back.
It's a tremendous point, because I think social selling has evolved. Social selling 10 years ago was using LinkedIn as an email channel. Like what you're seeing is like pitch and slap. It was like a lot better finessed, but it was the same thing ish, like 10 years ago. And that was social selling, right? Because we're connected with them. There's a little bit there. Then it evolved to posting content to help your ICP, right? Like I'm going to help marketers. I'm going to help sales development leaders. And it's still like that for a lot. But then what Landon's bringing in here, did it kick in another gear where it's just like, let's help people? Let's
just be people helping people, because it's what we are. Yeah.
As my pen.
Yeah. What did
flying,
you just do?
It wasn't anything that crazy. Not as crazy.
Getting wild, you guys.
But like, it is, is there a takeaway from this, right? Like, and the takeaway being, is prospecting developing, like just being more one-to-one with the human behind it? Lindsay, what do you see?
Yeah, absolutely. I think humanizing yourself is absolutely the future, because we have obviously so many remote companies, right? We're prospecting remotely. We're not going into offices. We're not meeting people in person anymore, right? And so it's hard to sit there over an email and make yourself sound like a human and not a robot. And so that's where, tools come into play to really help you, personalize that, but humanize yourself as well. So there are a few different things that you need to do there, right? You need to be relevant, you need to be personalized, and then you also need to make sure that you're coming off as a person, trying to help out another person, add value to another person. It's about I really think like the gives and the gets too. So you need to add value to someone or help someone, and that humanizes you as well to be able to receive something back. And so I really think that the LinkedIn social selling and in general social selling is really going to help humanize and obviously create your personal brand, which is, it's so important to get that response in the future for outbound prospecting. So
I'm curious, Daisy, how has all of this helped evolve what you're saying on the phones to people, and how you're using that channel?
Yeah, the beauty of the phone is that you catch people whether or not they're expecting it or not. And if you can get through that first couple of seconds of the hook, you have a conversation. And so I think that's one of the strongest part of using the phone. And from there, again, as Lindsay and Landon mentioned, like you want to work with whatever works best with your prospect. If they're a texter, if they're big on email, they're big on LinkedIn messages, now you open up all the other channels because you're developing a relationship. And so why we think the phone is so special is because, again, you get that initial conversation. Everything else, we focus on what your prospect wants and needs and how he or she wants to hear from it. And then it opens up the other channels too.
Yeah, Landon,
Aaron asked how you build that relationship when prospecting. So if you want to run with that one, Landon.
Yeah, all the channels at your disposal. How do you build that relationship?
Yeah, that's you just help. You build relationships by helping and not asking for anything in return.
Yeah, I recently built a sequence based off just providing value to just like not asking. There was no CTA of like, hey, you have time to meet or keen to learn more or open to a chat or find my booking link here. It was basically being like, I'm sure you guys already have a system like this in place, or do your reps actually get alerted daily with accounts that are ready for conversion? Are you homegrown system? Like just trying to ask these thought-provoking questions to get them to reply to it so we could actually have a conversation. And I could change the narrative like, hey, I'm going to like help you get here. Yeah, I'm an SDR and I do want to book you, but I'm looking at you for like the next 3 months of pipeline, not today, because there's nothing really I can change about this. I'm just going to reach out to more people and take this approach because I'm really trying to change how I do it because now I'm leading SDRs and my approach previous isn't very transferable for some reason to other SDRs that I lead. So I'm trying to work on that and understanding like, hey, why can I do this really well, but I can't teach it to other SDRs to do it well? So I'm trying to be more methodical on how I approach outbounding and segmenting it and like really just peeling back the onion and being like, this is why I'm doing this is because we want them to come to us when this problem arises. We got to present the problem first though.
That gets back into the change part. Everything's changing, right? The change is constant. So when the problem arises, because it will, you want to be ready to be able to just deliver and help.
Before we dive into like your other point of views on relationship building, I'm curious because Dale in the comments made a great point. It's a long tail strategy, and I happen to think it's a great strategy. I happen to agree, but your manager needs numbers this month, right? Maybe even quicker. How do you balance, the idea of not trying to sell with hitting your monthly goals, your monthly sales goals? Lindsay, I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think I previously was an enterprise SDR. And so as if anyone has done enterprise in the past, obviously getting that meeting takes a long time, right? It would take me sometimes 12 calls before I got in contact with the senior director, VP of a 35,000 person company, right? And before I could set that meeting. So a couple months. So I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think it's building that relationship long term. And that's where RAMP comes into play too, right? That's why we don't expect SDRs to come in their first month and book a whole ton of meetings, right? They're going to slowly book those meetings. And so I think for me, that's where phones come into play, like Daisy mentioned. I think building that relationship quickly over the phone, that's one of my favorite channels, honestly, because I think I'm impatient and I really do like those quick wins over the phone, right? And so I think it's a combination, and that's also why we use all these different channels too. I think phones can be a little bit quicker, whereas email and social selling, right, is going to take a little bit longer. So it's kind of that combination of the two in those different channels.
Daisy, your reps have to hit their quotas, right? Like, in fact, your job is on the line if they don't. How do you balance them, give them that space, and encourage these types of practices?
Yeah, Jared. So my philosophy is you got to hit quota early. The earlier you can hit it, the more the rest of the month is focused on overachieving and accelerators and sets you up for success the following month or quarter, which gets you ahead to crush it out again. And so how do we do that? So a lot of times when folks are working extra hours, doubling down, it's when they're not hitting their number and now they're scrambling to not go on a PIP or a performance improvement plan because they got to hit their number. So why not take all that extra effort and energy when you're scrambling to hit your number early on? When you first start a company, put down that 2x the hours, whatever you got to do to understand the ICP, close your first deal or book that first meeting. And then now you're on a roll. And now from then on out, you just work the same amount of hours without having to overwork, but you're ahead of the game. And that takes off the pressure when you're having the conversations that you're at your quota already. Everything else is just extra. And so that's my personal philosophy, and to create a way where sales doesn't have to be stressful and you can hit those accelerators in a way that makes sense to everyone.
Yeah, I always said RAMP is the time to like really impress the people that hired you. Like just be like, come right out the gate.
Just kidding.
RAMP is the time to hit your goals, to get everybody off your back. Len, what are you seeing with your team at Falcon? Balancing the idea of not selling people but needing to hit your numbers.
Yeah, we actually before I started, they were at they were held to a 16 meeting held quota, and we actually just switched it to five stage 2 opportunities with director and above. Well, what we were seeing is that we were having all these great meetings, but they were with SDR managers and directors of sales development, which are normally really good champions for a product like our SDR module, which is the insights. But the thing is like, we're in a bear market and SDR teams are getting cut left and right. And if that's our only avenue, our only door we're going into, like we're going to look back in 6 months and be like, whoa, like our conversion numbers are really low. So we position to like, hey, one SDR is going to focus on the AE module. One SDR is going to do the SDR insights. One's going to do RevOps and one's going to do PLG. And this is going to be our approach. All they have to do is 20 new prospects a day and 50 dials, and then 20 relevant emails that you added the extra touch to. And right now that's what I hold as like, hey, like you went through the day and you gave it your best. And like, I want net new prospects every day. Like that's the most important thing. We don't have territories. It's net new prospects per persona every day. Yep. Have conversations, write these emails, shorten them up. We write them together. We get feedback from each and every one. Tyler's really creative. He puts like GIFs in them, and like, he's got like a screenshot with Will Smith holding the screenshot. Like, it's just fun. He's got a cat. Someone replied today, said, I'm allergic to cats. Like, okay, that's the weirdest objection I've heard. But, it's like, get out, get be different, right? Like, try something different.
Different.
My goal is, it's to really be the manager that to not be the manager that I used to despise and resent. Because at the end of the day, I will go and someone will reach out to me with a better offer, and I will go there thinking that it's going to be greener on the other side, and it rarely ever is, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to show them. And so I want to make sure that I am leading a culture where it's like they can come knock on the door and be like, hey, I don't like how we're doing this. And I'd be like, yeah, tell me what you'd rather do. And then we'll talk through it instead of just pinpoint fingers like this is the way or the highway kind of show. That's what I'm really trying not to do, but it's tough.
I love that. A quick tactic before we dive in more that I found over the years, the GIF with the deer peeking out in LinkedIn when somebody views your profile.
GIF.
It's GIF. That's
it's so
the creative
GIF.
way.
What did you?
GIF.
Okay, creativity.
Anyway, besides the point. So regardless, there's a deer peeking its head out, and I write a 2-liner like, "Hey, Landon, saw you checking out my profile. I hope I didn't do anything wrong?" ? And I remember giving that. Like, we used to get so many meetings from it. Like, I gave it to like Morgan Ingram like one day, and he's like, "Yo, Jared, I just booked 3 meetings yesterday from that." So interesting, fun
Be
fact.
Different. Yeah.
It's super light, right? Like if they're looking at your profile, there's a level of intent to do that. It might be an accident, but there's a level of intent. And transitioning that, what trigger events do you look for before engaging a prospect? I see Lindsay shaking her head. I'm curious to your point of view.
So
You're on.
Hiring.
I have GIF on. Dale put GIF in here, by the way. I just want to.
Hiring is a huge one. I think, regardless of the persona you're prospecting into, I think hiring is a great trigger to get people to reach out. I think, obviously, we're in a completely different economy now than we were this time last year, but funding raises is another one. Big news about companies, news about CEOs, news about anyone in the C-suite is another one. But for me, I think hiring or just hired is really massive. And so using things like that in your outreach is going to make it way more relevant than you send your GIFs, whatever you want to call them. I like to send those too, but I also like to make it relevant by including those triggers like, hey, I see you're hiring AEs. I see you're building out a BDR team, right? How is that? How are you ramping those SDRs? How are you onboarding those people today? Using that to make your outreach more relevant is going to be way, way more important, in my opinion, than talking about their surfing or their surfboard in their profile picture, right?
Oh my gosh. I once had somebody send me a GIF or a GIF, depending on what part of the country you're from. And it was like a Penn State Stadium erupting. Penn State Stadium erupting. I went to Penn State, right? And I'm looking at this guy's profile, and I'm like about to go there. I'm like, if he didn't go to Penn State University, this is going to be so out there. And he went to like Georgia, and I'm like, get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. But building off what Lindsay just said, dear Amelia, I saw you just accepted a new role. Hi, Landon. Saw you're building out an SDR team. We have some great hiring triggers here. But what about you, Daisy?
Yeah, I think a good trigger as well is when someone starts a new job, because one, if they start a new job, they're a lot more open to conversations. You want to make an impact when you start a new job. You're learning the lay of the land. So when people reach out, you're like, hey, what's that tool? What's that does? What does that do? The only caveat is everyone's bombarding them when we start a new job. So you have to find a way that stands out, whether it's catching them on the phone, so you have an actual conversation, or sending a gift or a Giphy, whatever makes sense. Just their persona is going to catch that attention.
What have you found to be like the most out of the box, or your team found to be the most out of the box way to catch them? Like, the more money you raise, the more people call, the more people you're hiring, the more people
Wait a week,
call.
you guys. It's a rule. It's a rule. Listen, Landon, you should know this one too. With Kyle Coleman, he shared one time in a post. If somebody raises around, they recently got funded. Wait a week. Do not bombard. Wait a week, and then reach out out of respect and acknowledge that too. So, quoting Kyle Coleman, if I'm wrong, I don't think I am, but that's all.
Test it, right? Daisy, have you seen anything work? Is it wait a week, or is there something else? Just hit them on the phone while they're at the gym?
Yeah, so I mean, we're focused heavily on the phones here. So how we get creative is different things you say on the phone. So it's not just calling them. It's calling them at different times. We recommend calling at 5 minutes before the top of the hour. So at or 5 to 10 minutes. So like 11:45, 50, 55. That's usually the time between meetings. If someone gets out of meeting early or they're on the way to the meeting, it's an easy way to catch them. And then from there, you got to get creative with your hook. How can you leverage your personality, your voice, to capture that first 5 seconds so they're willing to talk to you? And a lot of times, folks, it's very common to say, hey, not interested. Hey, I'm busy. Hey, I'm at the gym. And something you can also do is, hey, I totally understand. Let me just level with you. Just so I don't waste your time in the future calling you again. I just want to make sure this makes sense for you. Can I have 10 seconds or XYZ? And when you frame it that way, a lot of times, if you tell someone, just so I don't waste your time and call you back in the future, they're probably going to give you that 10, 50 seconds because they don't want you to call back in the future. So things like that, again, to capture enough to have a conversation.
I love that. Now, we're running close to the end here. I'm going to ask one question. I'm going to ask another question, and we'll start taking it to what the audience has here. Any tools that you don't work for, or tactics that you would recommend that are essential for prospecting?
Yeah.
Go on.
Want me to go?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
I would say a tactic that's really good, a way for you to be relevant at scale, is leverage G2. One thing I did at Vanta was really good for me is that I leveraged their competitors, and it would tell them who had the SOC 2 and who didn't, and I would just screenshot that and be like, usually we see that you might be losing some deals at the 1 yard line if you don't have this SOC 2. Is that happening? Or I'd look at their website and notice there was no SOC 2. Hey, call them. Hey, I'm on your website. I don't see a SOC 2. Are you guys in progress with that right now, or what's going on? And they'd be like, oh no, we need that. Okay, cool. Let's book a meeting. When I was at Workato, they did third-party integrations. I would look on their website if they're in HR space and they didn't have a Workday connector. Hey, wait a second, you're probably missing some large enterprise deals without this Workday connector, and you probably have 5 engineers building it, open to a chat, boom. Yes, at Nooks, it was like SDR would post about cold calling or in the remote, and they're using Outreach. Those are integrations we have. I'm using that in my first email. And now at Falcon, they use Salesforce. They have, we do PLG. If they have a free trial on their website, I'm hitting them up and saying, hey, are you like other growth leaders that have a homegrown system measuring your PQLs, but you're actually still under a 20% conversion rate? Like, are you open to a chat to see how we've helped streamline this and automate the process so your AEs know when to reach out for conversion? So it's like, I'm just like, hey, I'm not going to sit here and personalize a message to you because I got 50 people to reach out to. Like, I'm going to make it very pinpoint. And when you open it, I'm going to call you and we're going to book the meeting. Wow.
That is powerful. Being relevant will always beat tools, right? Like you could
relevancy over personalization, right? I think that's going to matter the most. If people hyper personalize things, like slow down, you guys. If you're going to go up, just like think about it. Would you walk over to somebody at a conference and say the weird stuff that you toss into an email or on the phones or whatever you say that you're trying to be personalized, hyper overly personalized? No, you're not gonna be like, oh, so hey, I love to surf like you, and I have a yellow surfboard, and like that's cool. Or like I like to rollerblade, and I saw that you had a tweet 8 years ago that said that you rollerblade. I'm like, no, that's creepy. You guys don't do that.
Creepy.
Don't be a creep. Don't go think about, would you walk up to a person at a conference and say this? And if you wouldn't, don't put it in your messaging. Don't say it. All that. Be relevant and then personal, like relevancy, ego stroke, all of that. Because why, when you think about anything that you're doing, like, would you talk to yourself? Like, would you be responsive to whatever it is that you're saying or you're delivering, the way that you're doing things and your prospecting, your outreach, or how you're just conversing, just these conversations? Would you be responding back to yourself? Like, are you doing, think of it that way. 2 cents done.
Lindsay, what are you seeing before we close out here as we're getting the curtain, but we're still going, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, I think any tools that are going to help you be more relevant. So I don't have a plug for any specific ones besides Avoma, obviously. But if you have tools that are helping you be more efficient and be more relevant, like Landon was talking about, I think that's going to be most important in the future, right? Going on G2, looking at competitors, saying, hey, if you're allowed to, hey, we're working with X competitor to help them solve this and this problem. This is something that you're seeing today too, right? So any tools that are going to help you do that.
And Daisy, to close us out here, what tactics or tools would you recommend?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer of not reinventing the wheel here. So I recommend working with your sales leader to create incentives for referrals. So reach out to your clients, your prospects that are happy, etc., and ask for referrals. Who in their network would be a good fit for this product? And there's incentives in mind. There's gift cards, incentives, whatever the case is. And a referral goes a long way for happy customers.
Thank you all. I couldn't agree more. It's so powerful. This has been awesome. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being fun in the chat right now.
Yeah, y'all, Dale in the comments. Dale was
we'll direct you
to yesterday.
Yes, I know somebody accepted a new offer, and you could pretty much tell who it was in the comments. Keep going, everybody. Next session is coming.
Thanks for letting me join y'all too. Bye.